If you've watched my previous videos, you've seen my terminal connections that I put in the center of the dash. I've used those for over a decade, and I thought they were pretty good, but the problem is I'm packing so many wires into here now that there isn't much room to work on things, and it's getting kind of frustrating, to be honest. The gauges barely fit with the clearance, so I decided I'm going to relocate a new panel down below, behind the console, on top of the exhaust pump. So I'll get rid of most of the terminal blocks, at least the battery and the ignition blocks out of here, and then it'll create a little more space for the gauges and just take some of the clutter out of the center of the dash. If I ever want to add more terminals, I'll have more space to do that. So the way I'm doing it are with these fused terminal strips. And you can get these on Amazon. They come with a bunch of fuses, the larger 80 style like we use on our cars. And what it allows you to do is there are two rows of terminals in here. One row is for the grounds, so you can run a ground lug to this pin, to this bolt, and that'll feed all the grounds across these terminals if you want grounds. I'm not really going to use the grounds that much, but they're there. And then this side gets positive power, and that feeds all these pins, and then when you run your fuse across, the lower pins, the lower terminals I should say, are getting power. So each terminal has its own fuse. The grounds have nothing to do with any of the positives. They're just strictly a ground bus coming off this lug. But the positives, each fuse runs its own positive terminal. So this is kind of like the power distribution center is doing up on the engine compartment. It's going to be doing a lot of what this is doing inside the car. So if I need to connect something, I don't have to come out here and do it. I've put a relay in. So my main battery cable, I've got 8-gauge battery cables coming back. So I'll connect the ground and the positive to here, and the positive battery voltage will go to this relay, and I'll have this wired up to some ignition controlled wire, probably get it out of the headlamp module, and when this gets energized, the relay energizes, and that gives me 12 volts to an ignition strip. So this entire bottom strip will run off ignition, this strip will run off battery, and then if I need grounds anywhere, I've got a crap load of them there. So that takes care of 3 strips that are in the dash. So basically all that'll be left in the dash is the accessories and the lights, the dimmer lights. So that'll free up a lot of space for the back of the gauges to fit in there and get some of the clutter. If I want to work on something down the road, all I have to do is slide this panel out of the pump. It'll be concealed under the carpet. There's nothing really on the back. And I think that should work out nice. If you've watched the earlier videos, you know that I've got the battery relocated to the rear. And what I've got are 2 circuit breakers, 100 amp and a 40 amp. And why I size them this way, it's kind of arbitrary, but I just figure that's enough. For the main line was 100, and 40 should supply that fuse panel that I just built. And on the battery, I've got these quick release clamps that I found that are kind of interesting, in that you can just unclamp it. They've got mount for the main cable, and then you can put on auxiliary cables. I've got 8-gauge wire coming into this one. That'll handle 40 amps. So this output's going to the 100 amp, this is going to the 40 amp, and then I've got my ground cables. This one's going straight to the frame of the car, and the smaller 8-gauge is going up to the fuse panel that I just built. So between these two cables, I'm feeding the entire car, and they're both separated power-wise by these two circuit breakers. So something different I'm trying. Instead of running everything through one cable, this cable goes all the way to the front, this cable goes to the front of the console on the interior. Now the thing I'm not sure of is my narrowband oxygen sensor. They want wired to the battery because you get your best performance that way. Actually, the normal oxygen sensor, the narrowband, should also be to the battery. So I may have to run a set of wires all the way back, but I do have the ability to put them on these lugs. So I can run the auxiliary wires back here for those. So just something I'm toying around. May have to go with another, probably run it through the fuse panel. I'm thinking, I don't know. So I'll figure out what I'll do with that later. But for now, this is what I'm going with. Just one more design that I've modified from where it was a few weeks ago. One of the things that had ground this project to a halt was getting the turbocharger rebuilt. So what I decided to do for this build, the 2.2, is to go with the stock turbo that came with it. It's got the 3-inch swing valve on it from Turbos Unleashed. And what I had done when I had it rebuilt, I did it by turbokits.com. I had them change the impeller in it to something that'll give me more performance than what the stock one was. And as they had said, that turbo technology has improved so much since the last 25 years that this will perform much better than the stock turbo did, and hopefully I'll be able to run up 300 horse if I need it. I don't plan on going that high, but this is what it's rated at. So hopefully it's worth the wait. It cost me $1,000 when you get done with the shipping and all, but I'm really looking forward to getting it on the car and getting this thing running again. So at least now I know I've got a solid turbo. There's no shaft play, and it's been gone through. It's been run at 100,000 RPM test on the test bench. So hopefully this turbo will hold together. The last one I bought for it was the Super 60, and that one didn't last. So hopefully I'll get better results with this one. But that was done back 15 years ago, and even since then things have changed. So what I'm going to do is I've got the Super 60 that I took off the car. So this is the S60 turbo that I had. This is the one that was smoking in the prior video. So my plan is to use this on my 2.5 liter and have it built up so I can go up to a 400 horse performance. So now, after deciding I'm changing turbos and all, the thing that bothers me, I'm not sure about the tune that's in the spec. And I thought about it hard. I decided that I was going to use the wideband kit that I had bought, the Innovate kit. And after I just figured I would throw that on, I also decided that I might as well go with the Microsquirt kit that I bought for the Daytona. So you can understand this is the Microsquirt. I actually bought this 2 years ago for the Daytona, but I haven't had time to get that going. And at the time I thought it was going to be a cheap way to go. I got the kit for around $350 if I remember right. But in the last month I have done a lot of research and found out that it does not have the IAC control for your idle air. So you have to buy an extra kit to do that. So I bought the stepper adapter. So I'm adding more cost to the Microsquirt. And then if you add the narrowband kit, this has the narrowband converter. This was another $200 and a quarter, somewhere in there. It does come with a gauge. So if you add these two kits to the Microsquirt, you're now up into the $700 range. And you might as well go with a Microsquirt 3 because that will do the idle air. It will also control the wideband without having a converter, a controller with it. So you gain a lot more capability. The other thing is the Microsquirt does batch fire on the injectors, so you're going to have to run 2 injectors at a time. So even if it's not on the compression stroke, you're going to be shooting fuel to one of the injectors. Now that's what our cars do. They run batch fire anyway, so it's not that big a deal. But if you go with the Microsquirt, you get the sequential, so you can have each injector fire only when you want it to fire, instead of firing 2 of them in pairs. So that's another reason to go to the Microsquirt. So if you're contemplating going to a Microsquirt, I highly suggest that you just jump right to the Microsquirt and go that setup, because it's going to give you a lot more built-in features that will be handy, and you won't have to be spending all your money on auxiliary kits and making them work. That being said, I'm a long ways from getting it running, so my initial plan is to start with the SMEC that I've got and then use the wideband O2 sensor as a monitor, just so I can record what my actual tune is doing at this point. I'm not going to go getting into the boost or anything. I'm just going to look at the main running as if it was a normally aspirated. And then I'll start working into a little bit of boost and figure out where my tune is. And then once I've decided whether it's good or bad, then I can start migrating to the Microsquirt. And they say the best way to start is if you have a running car, to just change the fuel system over to be controlled by the Microsquirt. And then once you get that running, then you can start with the ignition. And that sounds like a good way to go, because you're not being held up by anything if you're out of spec on something and you're not sure of the settings. It kind of gives you a way to get into it gradually. So that's the plan. Costing me a lot of time. This build was supposed to have been done months ago, but again, if you have a plan of a dead hardline date in mind, that's just going to add to frustration. So don't get frustrated, keep an open mind, do the right thing, and that's kind of where I'm at. Is I keep coming up with these ideas, and I know in the back of my mind that this is the best way to go, so I'm making changes. That's why I haven't been posting any videos, because I don't have enough information ready for you that shows any concrete progress. But at least now you know which direction I'm going in.